All right, welcome back to another episode of Phoenix Edge. This is an RPG and gaming news podcast. My name is Hat.
And I'm Eric.
And I am Stan.
And today we are going to be commenting on Saga Frontier's recent remastered announcement. It's coming out in summer 2021. That's going to lead us into a discussion on the pros and cons of adding new story content into retro games. Afterwards, we're going to be talking about Fire Emblem, Shadow Dragon, and the Blade of Light. We've had some hands-on time to play the game. We're going to be giving our impressions with it. Eric's going to be showing us what you can get in the collector's edition. So that should be pretty cool. And then afterwards, we have Discord questions from Valvedrix and Demosthenes. So with Valvedrix, who asks, with December coming up, I have a question. Do you have any games you traditionally replay every year around Christmas? I know a lot of people do, myself included. If you do, which games are they? And then Demosthenes asks, do you guys think you'll do a podcast near New Year's talking about your favorite games that came out in 2020? Almost said 2021. Not quite there yet. But anyways, so these are the topics for this week. Want to give you all a huge thank you for sticking with us. We took a little time off for the holidays, but we're back at it. So thank you for that. But let's jump into our very first topic of the day. So Saga Frontier Remastered, like I said, it's been announced by Square. It's coming out in summer 2021, and it's going to be coming to the PS4, Nintendo Switch, Steam, iOS, and Android, basically all over the place. And this is following a trend from Square Enix, who's been recently remastering the Saga games. We had Romancing Saga 2 and 3, and then I think in a couple of days, we're going to have Collection of Saga coming out as well. So very cool that we're getting some of these ports. And yeah, if you guys are not familiar with this game, it was released originally on the PlayStation 1 in 1997, and it's a science fiction JRPG. So what made this game unique and this series unique, but I think a lot of people attribute to the PlayStation games, is the story had a very non-linear kind of JRPG open world type story or approach to its development. So basically you could choose your own protagonist, and that would allow you to play the game as that character, and each one had their own unique story, kind of similar to Octopath Traveler. I know that was very inspired by this franchise, and the game was very, very open. It would let you just kind of go anywhere you wanted. And this was cool in some respects and kind of cumbersome in others, because some people would run into the final boss in like a half hour because they just went to the wrong location. And then other people would, you know, go in 2 or 3 dungeons and not progress the story. But then other people really liked it because they were able to, you know, create their own story out of it, more like an open world game. So it had a very different approach for JRPGs. And the original game had 7 optional protagonists that you could choose from at the beginning of the game. The character Red, by the way, this is just a fun fact. The character Red, if you're playing this game, is often the character recommended to newer players because that character has a more linear story. So it's a little bit easier to just kind of play through in a traditional JRPG fashion.
Another fun fact, Red also has one of the dumbest hairstyles I've ever seen in a JRPG. If you want to see how extreme it can get, go look up a picture of him right now.
What about, like, would you, like, where would you rate Red's hairstyle compared to Seymour from Final Fantasy X?
Seymour at least has like some kind of style to it. This one is just like
part deer.
Just like he has a giant just wave head up, just spike like this. Like, yeah. It's like he took like a full thing of like hand gel and just took his long hair down and just went up like that.
Oh man,
he's like, well, ready for the day now.
Yeah, that's how you do it. That's how you do it.
I like all the other character designs in Saga Frontier, but something about him though, it's just like I don't ever want to play him.
Well, if you want a linear story, choose that one. You'll know who it is. You don't even need to see him now.
Caveat to it. He looks stupid.
Well, it is what it is. So, due to the number of characters and the different routes you can take, there are multiple endings. And what's being added to this remaster that is special, it's got a lot of people talking, is that they're adding an eighth protagonist named Fuse, who is a character that was originally supposed to be in the game, but was cut for whatever reason. But now they're adding Fuse back in. And this is important because this isn't only another character, this is another protagonist. So you could play the game with that, with Fuse being the main character. And so they've promised new cutscenes and new endings because this new character has been added into the game. So that's pretty special. There's been some other added features as well. They've redrawn the sprites and enhanced the backgrounds, and this has kind of addressed the criticism that the game had at launch with some people, where they felt like the sprites looked good. It was pixel art, but it didn't mesh well with the backgrounds. It was two conflicting art styles. So they've redrawn the sprites here, and I personally think it looks better in this case. Usually I prefer them to stick to the original artwork, but I do think this goes together better. But aside from that, they've also added a high speed mode and some other small gameplay tweaks and things like that. I'm sure we'll hear more information as it gets closer to summer 2021. But the original reception to the game from IGN was a 7. RPGFan.com gave it a 7.5. GameSpot gave it a 7. So pretty kind of average / good when it was released. The pros that most of these places gave it was that it had great combat, great soundtrack, great replayability with all these different characters. Some people liked the art style, some people didn't. But some of the cons were that the freedom, like I was talking about earlier, was too much for some players. They would actually get lost and find it difficult to know what to do next with certain characters. And that was cumbersome to some people. Also, not all character stories are rewarding. So if you picked a character that had a bad story, you were just kind of like, maybe I should just replay this game with somebody else. And then character sprites, like I said before, they didn't always mesh well with the background, although that was kind of, some places said that, some places didn't really have a problem with it. Anyways, the big thing to focus on here is that they're adding an eighth protagonist to the game. And I think that is huge. So what I want to talk about here, guys, with you guys, and get y'all's opinion here, is with Saga Frontier being fairly divisive when it came out, and Square's adding this eighth character into the game, what do you think about this practice in regards to Saga Frontier, with Square kind of giving people a chance to play the game again and, possibly addressing some of the criticisms with a game that's been out for 25 years? I mean, they're adding new story content into it as opposed to just leaving it alone and re-releasing it, which might be what some people prefer. But
I think it's in good faith because it's so easy to just release it and just HD upscale it and have it be that at the end of the day.
right,
But it does seem like they're going the extra mile just to get more bang for your buck out of it, just adding whole new content to it, addressing issues that people had with it. I think that's pretty great, and I don't really see much of a downside to it besides asking the question, why was the content cut necessarily? I would assume there was probably time constraints, and which probably led to not including him. But there's also the chance that they may have excluded him because he just didn't work, and
Yeah.
they could just be attempting to get him to work. But in general, I really love when they do stuff like this. It's a motivation to get it again, even if you never played it before. It kind of reminds me, probably one of my favorite ones was, or we I can talk about it when we talk about other games
okay,
that have done it. But
well,
yeah, I don't see much downside to
yeah,
this. It's more content. I think the only thing I would be against, like I said before, if it was something that like really made the game bad, like say that like Final Fantasy 7 had they actually originally planned for Eris to come back. And then they have like that special dungeon which revives her. But like, wow, we decided to bring this back. Um, they decided to cut it for some reason. We don't know why.
Yeah. Well, I think, like you said, we're going to touch on some of the like other games that have added that stuff in or added some extra stuff in. But I think that you're right though about Saga Frontier. Like, I don't see how this could be necessarily a bad thing. I have to admit, when I first saw this, I was getting vibes like Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles Remastered vibes, where they showed this trailer and it seemed like they're adding this new content in. You know, it's like, oh, wow, you're making a game that was kind of good when it was released, you know, kind of hit or miss with different people, and you're making it a lot better. And then Crystal Chronicles came out, and like all the same problems people had with it originally were still present, except it's been
Yeah.
like 20 years. And so now it's even like more dated, right? So I was getting vibes like that, but I'm actually cautiously optimistic about this because I think the core elements of the game were all universally praised, which was the combat, right? And I saw that in multiple reviews from multiple different places because I've only played a little bit of the game. I haven't played it extensively, but everywhere I saw said the combat was really, really good. It's supposed to be an enhanced version of the Final Fantasy II combat, or it's better than that, and it's done some other changes as well. So I think that if the base element or the based gameplay element of the game is still good, I can't imagine this being a bad release. And then also, I, because it was a divisive game, I think that there is less room to jack it up. And you know, it's not like a lot of people are really just worried about the lore being jacked up. So, you know, and if this
Right.
is just I think the perfect game to do this with, because each character has their own unique story, and it's apparently like the stories don't really affect each other. It's kind of like Octopath Traveler in that way. So if you add a new character, it's very unlikely that new character is going to hurt another character's story if you like that character's story.
I'll say this just in general that the Saga games, there are very good games in the series, but people really need to be open-minded about what kind of game it is.
Mm-hmm.
It is most definitely one of the most non-traditional JRPGs out there. It's got the elements that make a JRPG, but the structure is is definitely of its own kind within its realm.
It has its
Yeah.
fan base, but not everyone's going to enjoy it.
Yeah.
If
The
you're
Saga
someone,
games.
I'm sorry, what'd you say?
Well, I was going to say they're very experimental. You're right. Like compared to the other JRPGs that were coming out at the time, which was, I think, was kind of the whole idea. Like they had developers working on Final Fantasy games, but if you got tired of that, kind of style of game, well, they were also developing these Saga games on side of them with a lower budget, and probably a much smaller teams. But there was somewhere for those developers to go who wanted to just try and think outside the box and just like try different things. And it didn't always work, which is why they kind of have like had said like mixed reception. So, but that's the kind of games that they are.
Mm-hmm. Like, typically JRPGs will guide you in some fashion to get to the next place. Like, you know where to go. Like, even if it may not completely tell you. And Saga kind of has that to an extent. Like, you know what you need to do, but it doesn't really tell you how to get there. Like, even like Romancing Saga 3 I played recently,
Mm.
which is a good game, by the way. You guys should play that too. Well, if you're waiting for a Saga game or want to get into it, that's a very good starter one. Anyways, like you can go to a place and it turns out it's too powerful for you to get through the dungeon all the way. So you don't have to be stuck there. You can leave and you can go in another direction and another way and progress through the game. So, like I said, it's like it's very its own unique beast. But if you're someone that likes like the strict storytelling JRPG, then Saga's probably not for you. But if you're someone that likes like multiple outcomes and wants to find their own way instead of being guided or handheld, it's like this is like stands at a very good experimental series to play around
Right.
with.
Mhm.
Well, regardless of whether or not you've played the game or you've never played the game, when it does come out, the fact that they've added this new character, I think that's just going to provide a ton of reason to go back and play it again, right? I guess this is more for people that have already played the game, but I mean, you know, if you've already beaten the game and the game comes out, why do you want to play it again if you're kind of like, oh, it was okay, it was good? But if there's a new character and you can experience the game again through the eyes of a new character completely and have new endings and like new cutscenes, that's pretty special. That's a pretty cool enhancement that I think is unique to. It's going to be less divisive and more well received for a game like Saga Frontier that has those departuring narratives. So I think it's really, really cool.
I had a interesting thought in my head,
Okay.
and that pretty much everything pre-90s, or pre-2000, I mean, Squaresoft threw away a lot of their data
Mhm.
that you
Yeah,
guys
like we
remember.
know they did that for Final Fantasy 8 for sure, and
Right.
7 as well. Yeah.
Yeah. And what I wonder is how much of the new content is from like old data, or is it actually stuff they had to build from the ground up for the game and they just happen to have like notes from developers and like this is
Mm.
what they're originally going to do, or like artwork pieces, because I have a feeling the data itself is gone. So I wonder if they're building this from scratch into the game, or if it's like hidden data someone just happened to have.
I know that the eighth character Fuse, like people have known that he was originally planned as a eighth character, like people in the Saga community, because they found files, I guess, in the disc that suggested that he was supposed to be playable as a main protagonist. So
Oh, so his data's in the disc?
there was something about like I'm not familiar with the game, but there's some point where your character has to like kind of go on like a sneaking mission, and so they kind of dress themselves in cloaks, and so there was like a unique sprite for each character, I guess, that has like kind of a disguise, if you will, and they found one for Fuse specifically, which made them think, oh, he was supposed to be a playable protagonist, and then they dug a little deeper and they found some other things as
They
well.
they do find stuff like that sometimes when they do go digging, because even if you look on YouTube, there's videos where people have found scenes from Final Fantasy VII that are on the disc, but not accessible through playing the game.
Yeah.
And it's just, and there's nothing in there that's groundbreaking. It's not like scenes with Sephiroth or anything. It's just more wacky scenes from the Honeybee Inn and and stuff like that that just were just cut, and they just never took it off the disc for some reason. But anytime they're going back and adding content like this, it makes me think that it wasn't just a simple like, oh, here's the game, let's port it, because sometimes when they start changing stuff, it's like, well, you're already in there. Like, you know, it's just easier. But I don't know. I guess we'll find out as we get closer. But some other RPGs that have been retro RPGs that have been re-released that added extra story content on a re-release. These are just a few examples. But Dragon Quest V, it re-released on DS, added a third wife that wasn't originally available. Chrono Trigger on its DS release added optional story content that tied it to Chrono Cross. Xenoblade Chronicles, the DE version, added future connected epilogue story. So, you know, some additional story content there. Final Fantasy II, Dawn of Souls version for Game Boy Advance added a story epilogue episode called Soul of Rebirth. Final Fantasy VII Remake added in cut content from the game, added story content for NPCs Jesse, Biggs, and Wedge, and other story content that tied Final Fantasy VII Remake to the Final Fantasy VII novels released after the game. So that's some examples of other games that have added content in similar to the past. Obviously, 7 Remake took that to a whole new level. But given that Saga Frontier was a fairly divisive game at release, with some obvious areas for improvement, it seems people are more receptive to added content than divisive games like Saga Frontier. So, what do you think about adding story content to games that were critically acclaimed at release or quote unquote RPG classics? Is there a difference?
I guess as long as it doesn't harm the original story of the game.
Right.
I kind of made that joke about Eris being revived in FF7.
Right.
But some of those you mentioned are real good. Like, even if you, I know a lot of people don't care for Final Fantasy 2, but I thought it was really interesting. All your party members who died in the game all came together, and they are going from the bottom of hell back up to Pandemonium, and they actually engage with the angelic form of the Emperor. And while the main party of the original game goes against the hellish version, and it was really interesting, like the character dialogue between them going there. So I mean, it's a really nice touch if you're a fan of Final Fantasy 2. It brings a lot of new context to the game. So sometimes it really works well. I'm trying to think of a game that doesn't do it, that did
Well,
it really badly.
well, while you do that,
Well,
go ahead, Stan.
uh, yeah, I was just gonna say about Final Fantasy 2 also. Like, it's also really nice that it's at the end of the game, right? Like, it's an epilogue story for the Soul of Rebirth, right? Like, if you play through the game normally, Final Fantasy 2, and then there's this extra piece of content there if you want it. It's not like inserted into the game, right? It doesn't force you to, it doesn't stretch out the length of the main plot. It's a bonus feature, like an epilogue, kind of like Xenoblade Chronicles, the Future Connected epilogue story. You can play through Xenoblade Chronicles as it was on the Wii with the Switch version, and then that extra story is there if you want it. If you just couldn't get enough Xenoblade Chronicles, it's there and you can keep going, but it's not like required to get the full story as it was originally.
Here's what I'm thinking, guys, because I'm hearing you both. I think where it works and where it doesn't really depends on why they're doing it, right? So with Xenoblade, they're adding this optional content in there just as like a bonus, right? As
Mhm.
something to help market the game, to something extra, to a reason to play it again. And that's cool. That's generally accepted, like Eric brought up too, as long as it's good and it's not hurting anything, like we're generally okay with it. But I think what the problem is when it's a classic is when someone's going back in a game that's revered and they're trying to fix something, and what they're trying to fix may not be something that needs to be fixed to a lot of
Mm.
people that played the original game. And so I
Yeah.
think like this is where you start running into that George Lucas problem, right? Where he's just continuously
Oh
trying
man.
to like edit the original Star Wars movies and make them better. And every time he does it, people are like, no, I like the original thing. Stop doing that. And, and it's at the point where I don't even think you can get the original movies anymore unless you buy them used. So it's very weird if someone wanted to go back and try to fix Chrono Trigger, for example, right? Because that's one of the most beloved games of all time. And if someone were to go back and be like, you know what, like I think we need to add more to, Luca's story or something, that might be good, but it's kind of like a very like, why would you do that? People already like it as it is. You're just playing with fire at this point. Or if they're like, well, I don't really like the fact that Luca's like a brainiac. I think she needs like, more sex appeal or something. Or I don't know. Like people would be very unhappy, but somebody out
Yeah.
there might be like, that's a good idea. That would make it better. Let's do that. Or let's make Chrono talk. This would make Chrono Trigger better. And that would not go over well because you're trying to fix a game that everyone likes, especially Chrono. Anyways, no one has actually tried to fix Chrono Trigger. They added that optional content And I think that's perfectly fine. It's optional. It's there if you want to play it, but it's not eroding the original experience. Now, if they try to remake, if they re-released Final Fantasy VII, the PlayStation 1 version, but they added like cut content like the Harbingers of Fate back into the PlayStation version, right? To like try, like, I would not like that. I would be like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
That's no, stop. So I just think that it's, you know, when it's a classic and you're trying to fix it, that's where you run into a problem, I think.
Yeah,
So
I agree. It's
Mhm.
yeah, or like if they wanted to add the Johnny scenes like from Final Fantasy VII remake, which were on the disc originally.
yeah,
Like
what
there
if they
was there.
added Roche to the original PlayStation version?
Oh my gosh.
Uh,
Yeah. We old JRPG fogies would be tweeting up a storm at them
I
and
saw.
and
Anyways,
typing furiously in our Discord server. Yeah.
yeah. I don't know, dude. It's just crazy. But I mean, I think Eric, you brought up earlier that sometimes cut content's supposed to be cut for a reason. You know, it's not always
Mhm.
because of time. Think about like the original concept of Final Fantasy VII. Wasn't it like Detective Dick or something like that in like New York City, or Detective Joe? I like,
Yeah.
oh, are we supposed to put Detective Joe back in the game because it was cut? You know, sometimes it's
Yeah.
like, oh, this is a first draft. This
Yeah.
really like, or the Harbingers of Fate, Sakaguchi, I think removed that because Destiny kind of conflicted with the other theme of being responsible for your actions, you know, and having to live with that, being destined to do those actions. Kind of, he felt like that muddied the image a little bit. Whereas Destiny would have worked great in Final Fantasy VIII. If you were to add those ghosts in there, that probably
Mm.
would work because that's about fate. So, anyways, that's a little bit of a tangent, but it's
You
just
know what's
sometimes
sad
it's
though?
cut for a reason. Go ahead.
That we get something like the FF8 HD remaster and these quote unquote not as popular games
Yeah.
gets more special treatment than, you know, their bread and butter franchise. They didn't go back and look and say, wow, the junction system is pretty terrible.
But that's it,
Is
dude.
there is there
That's it. You
something we
can't
can do to
change
make
that.
it better?
I mean, I think you can change it, but I think if, like, imagine Xenogears, right? Xenogears, the second part, half of the game is basically a series of cutscenes and battles. And if they were
Yeah.
to remake that game, but they're like, okay, scrap those cutscenes, let's make the second half of the game. But they're not making it like AAA. Like, let's say they're just remaking it like Xenogears, but now they're actually making the dungeons. People would lose their mind. They'd be like, no, I like those cutscenes. Like, what are you
Maybe
doing? You know?
maybe they if they did do something that drastic, or like if they did like try to make a rebalanced junction system, you would hope that they'd give you the option of playing it the original way, you
They
know.
won't.
But they won't, because we've seen like in
Zodiac Age, they didn't do
yeah,
that.
Final Fantasy 12, there's no option
Oh,
for the
who does
original
that?
license grid of the North American version,
Yeah.
you know. And the only reason we got an expert sphere grid in Final Fantasy 10 is in the remaster is because that existed in the international version, you know.
Well, I guess you could
So
say the Zodiac Age job system also existed in the international version that only came out in Japan. But
yeah.
the
Yes.
version we got in the remaster was quite a bit different than the international version. They've added a lot on top of it, but
Yeah.
still
So sometimes they
point
do go
taken.
back and just change things like you said, and the results can be
Controversial.
varying. Yeah, they vary from person to person how they feel about those changes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
No.
I don't know. I think like let's say like with Final Fantasy VII though, let's say if they re-released a PlayStation version and they just added some additional scenes with Yuffie and Vincent to kind of flesh out like Vincent's animosity with Hojo. If we got a few extra scenes, maybe some extra scenes with Yuffie and Wutai, I mean, would I be upset?
Mm, I mean, that could work if they do it right.
Yeah, that's I guess that's the problem. As long as
Well,
it's good, like I guess you could always say that. I wouldn't mind if they fixed the junction system if it was good. Like,
I don't want to be that guy, but they already made a little additional content for Yuffie and Vincent is called Darsha Cerberus.
well, that's it. They did it after the fact. But I mean, if they went back and inserted that into, anyways, we're getting off on a tangent. But yeah, I mean, it's hard. It's hard to know when.
Overall, I think it's a good thing because a lot of times it's probably coming from people who are passionate about it. Like on the corporate level, I think what they mostly care about is that you get the product out there. I don't think they care much if they're like,
well,
you
they don't
know,
want to ruin their brand.
maybe if we added new content, people will come and buy it. Type
Yeah.
deal. I maybe they are like that sometimes, but as you see with a lot of HD remasters, especially from Square Enix, they're just as happy just throwing it out there because it sells anyways, even if you do a half-ass job on it.
I think we saw with the Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition that came out on the Switch, they said that, hey, we did a lot of work when we remade this game, and we wanted to charge $50 for it, but we felt like people wouldn't pay for it unless we did something extra, and that's why they did the extra Amelia content, right? And so that allowed them to justify the $50 price tag, which kind of forced you to buy DLC. But it's kind of interesting. I think sometimes they do kind of think about it from that perspective of like, what's the price tag? What are our competitors doing? But you are right, Eric. Sometimes they don't think about that at all. They just Square Enix it and just, hey, there's a phone version. What if we put that on a giant 60-inch TV with these giant buttons?
I had one more game in mind, and it's a doozy.
Oh boy,
but it's good.
Okay.
Radiant Historia 3DS.
Okay.
Added.
I thought you were going to say Final Fantasy 14. All right.
It added a whole new third timeline.
Okay.
That you could go through, and it offered a third alternative ending.
Did that ruin the game? I haven't played that version.
No, not necessarily. One, you don't have to do it.
Okay. I was going to say.
You can just go through the original storylines as they were. This one, you do a lot of particular missions, and when you beat them all, you have access to the third ending, which takes like an interesting twist from the first two into its own unique thing.
Okay.
And it's really awesome if you've already played the game before. If you've never played the game before, I definitely suggest you do the good ending from the original and then do that one, because it's just like an interesting take on everything.
Right.
But that is a really awesome one to get into. Like if you already have Radiant Historia and you were thinking about getting on the 3DS also, like I think that alone is worth playing it over again.
Boom, there you go. There's a recommendation from Eric. I've heard also good things on that as well. The Radiant Historia 3DS, I guess, I don't know, re-release with the added third timeline. So that's an option out there, and cool.
Yeah, for the inevitable Switch version, hopefully.
Yeah, I agree. It's inevitable. But all right, Jens, how you feel about us moving on? We're feeling
Let's move on.
Cool.
Yep.
So before we move on to our actual topic, though, we do have some housekeeping. Our media partner, I want to talk about them real quick. RPGFan.com. So, guys, I've been telling you guys almost every week, go to RPGFan.com. They have daily news on there. They got game reviews, soundtrack reviews. They got other podcasts on there. So while we're in our holiday break, they're putting out podcasts with Random Encounter, which does like RPG news and discussions, and then Retro Encounter, which does similar discussions, but also focuses on specific games. So I think right now they're doing Final Fantasy X-2, just super deep dives. So definitely go check them out. They also have a YouTube channel where they're putting out video reviews of RPGs, some of which I've been able to record game footage for them. So definitely very, very cool. Go check it out. Their latest reviews are for Genshin Impact and Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity and Kingdom Hearts Melody of Memory. All of those games got from good to fairly good scores. So go check that out and see what the reviewer has to say specifically on the content of the game. Also, upcoming things for our podcast. Super Mario RPG discussion will be happening this month. So definitely look forward to that. We have a Discord channel set up on our Discord server for people to talk about the game. So definitely go jump on there and share your thoughts if that's something that interests you. And then next week, I'll be giving Cyberpunk impressions. I'm going to be downloading the game on Thursday, playing on my PC. Very excited about that. So next week, I'll be talking about that. And we are most likely also going to be talking about the Game Awards next week, assuming that there's something there worth talking about, either us making fun of it or us talking about how good it is, or just, I'm sure there'll be something for us to talk about. But
maybe a trailer of a new game. Who knows?
Yeah, who knows? And then, Stan has also been collecting our best Discord question responses, and he's made a video out of it. So we're going to be posting that the Monday after Christmas, because you guys are not getting a new episode for us after Christmas, but you will get some callbacks to some of our best Discord responses, community question responses. So it's definitely worth checking out. I was watching it the other day after he sent it to me, and I think I watched like a half hour of it without even thinking about it. So I think you guys are going to enjoy it. And I think that wraps us up for news with the show. Let's keep going. So we have impressions for Fire Emblem, Shadow Dragon, and the Blade of Light.
Ooh.
So if you guys are not familiar with this game, this was the very first Fire Emblem game, and it was released originally in 1990 in Japan on the original Nintendo. And it historically is considered to be one of the very first RPGs in the tactical genre ever released. So very, very historically important game. So there were some prior remakes or retellings of the game, specifically Fire Emblem Shadow Dragon on the DS. That was a complete remake. They added lots of gameplay features, graphics, and all. It's basically a new game. But anyways, it's got the base foundation of that game in the DS game. So
they basically brought it to the modern era.
Yeah. So the 30th anniversary version that just came out the other day, this is important because it's the first time it's been released in English and other languages outside of Japan. So this is a timed release. It's only going to be available till March 31st, 2020, or so Nintendo says. It's probably going to come later too. But for right now, it's supposed to be a timed release. It's digital only. There is a collector's edition, which we're going to talk about, but it has a download code in it. So it's still a digital version. If you want to buy the digital version, it's $6 on the Nintendo Store. So the updates to the game, obviously the English localization, there's rewind and fast forward features, save states, and a pixel perfect resolution option. So very, very cool. Yeah, let's talk about the collector's edition first before we jump into our impressions of the game. So both me and Eric got the collector's edition, but Eric has it clearly. He's in his game room, so he has it nearby. So you wanna talk about this collector's edition, Eric, and kind of show off what's in there?
It's pretty damn amazing. I really like it.
It is. I like it too.
This is the initial box it comes in. It nice pixelated dragon right here from the original game. Fire Emblem 30 years, and then has the Fire Emblem and the Falchion sword in the back. For it, it comes with a lot of cool stuff. The first one you see, it comes with what it would be like if the game came out here in the US, the NES box. Now, granted, I don't think they would have used this artwork. I think they would have used like a more Western artwork inspired to show the game off. But obviously, the fans of the series will want this and not something like that. But this is a very beautiful box art here. It feels just like the original Nintendo. It's got all the stuff set in the back also to make it look genuine. Now you're wondering to yourself, what kind of stuff was in that box?
Oh,
Now,
good stuff.
now, like Hat said, there was only offered a digital code for the game, but what they did do is that they have a glass recreation of an NES cartridge.
Dude, it's so cool. Yeah.
It is
Nice.
It's really high
absolutely
quality too.
awesome.
It's pretty heavy. It's not
Yeah.
it's not light at all.
It's very thick,
Yeah.
very heavy.
Yeah.
It comes in this little Nintendo sleeve also.
I don't recommend sticking this in your NES. I don't
It will break the chips in your NES for sure if you try to ram it in there.
or your
It's gonna
Switch.
it's gonna look good on your shelf though, huh? Somewhere.
And also a relic of the old times for sure, an instruction manual that
Yes.
teaches you how to
Yeah.
play the game.
Yes.
It's very cool.
Yeah, it's got everything. It's a legit instruction manual
Dude,
too.
yeah,
It's not
they went all
like,
out, man.
yeah, they tried their best to teach you this game. But we'll definitely get into that in a few moments. I even like that they have like characters like displaying, like putting their hands up, be like, "Hey, look at this! You'll be interested in this information."
Well,
Yeah.
preferably the
good.
English version, but yeah. I think that was in Spanish.
The game also comes with a map of the game.
This is one of my favorites. I love them. I forgot about this, like getting maps with your RPGs. It was like getting a
Yeah.
token book or something, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's awesome, and it's got in the back. It's got character details in the back of it,
It's awesome.
and let's see what else they give you. I kind of want to put this in a frame and put it up
Dude,
because it looks really cool.
So,
They
was it-
give you
go ahead.
a poster of
Look what it says
Yeah.
at the bottom. At that in the
Says-
red.
the source for NES players straight from the pros.
Oh, that just cracked me up. Like, because I know Nintendo used to have like the hotline and stuff, right?
Yeah.
If Fire Emblem did come out in 1990 in the US, I guarantee you, like, people would be eating up the Nintendo powers because this game is unforgivingly hard.
Oh yeah.
So, but it's got this. It's really nice. In the back, it has like strategies that you can do, like the old Nintendo days. It'll give you secrets and kind of that kind of stuff. Like, like Castlevania 2, how the hell are you supposed to know to go all the way left on the map and bend your knees down and wait for a tornado to come to take you to the mansion? Only Nintendo Power could tell you that.
Yeah.
That's how you
Back in the
that's how you
day.
get 100 hours.
Yeah. And the very last thing that's included in this is a big old art book showing it gives you character details from the first game. It's not all Fire Emblems, it's just the first game, but it does give you artwork of all the appearances of all the characters throughout the series. They even have Fire Emblem Heroes mobile game artwork in here of Martha in the Santa suit.
Yeah, it's a hardback book too.
Yeah, it is hardback. Yeah, like, oh, I went straight to the Fire Emblem Heroes. Like, you got Martha and everything right here. And it's pretty great. I went through the whole book, and I mean, there's some beautiful art in here, definitely.
Yeah. So even if you're a newer Fire Emblem fan, that's probably a good investment just for that book, even if you're not attached to some of the earlier games, because they have artwork from the whole series in there.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah.
But that is everything that comes in the box. Obviously, also it comes with a little slip to let you digitally download the game.
That's the only thing that I didn't like. If I had to be, if I
Yeah.
have to be a little negative, I would just say, I feel like, if I spent $50 and the game's normally $6, I could have
Should come
got,
on a cart, right?
yeah, but I think that what we got is really, really cool. And it's just really awesome. Like, I'm really happy with it. So I'm kind of okay with it because I guess it kind of makes sense with it being a timed exclusive. I would have preferred if they came with like a little flash card with the game on it. But
If you
I'm
think
okay
about
with
it, the game is only like
30 kilobytes or something. I don't know.
Yeah, not even
No, man,
a
stick it on
megabyte.
a 32 gigabyte.
And you put that on a
Be glorious.
32 gigabyte cartridge.
It'll be like, hello, whoa, whoa, on
Like
the
no
card.
kill, quite like an overkill. But but what would have been cool though is if they had if the cartridge had like the game, obviously include this in the digital version, but have like the game and maybe like a digital art gallery, or maybe like a behind the scenes type of thing, or maybe show commercials of the game in Japan.
Mm.
That would have been cool, but this is definitely like worth the investment.
Yeah,
Most
alone.
definitely. If you are a big time Fire Emblem fan, like if you love the games throughout the history, like this is a very good investment.
Yeah,
If you're a
absolutely.
collector.
Totally agree. I think what sold me on it, that because it was kind of an impulse buy for me, because I am not, I don't dislike the Fire Emblem series. I'm just, I like the games that I've played. I just haven't played a lot of them. So, when I saw this collector's edition, usually collector's editions are not my thing, but I saw that glass NES cart and I was like, oh, dude, that's awesome. I need that.
Yeah.
I need that.
Man,
And,
I'll tell you,
dude, I'm really
man,
happy with it.
it delivered, man.
It's high quality too.
I was hoping it wouldn't be like some cheap like plastic feeling glass.
No, that's like dude, I could hit somebody over the head with that and get in trouble. I mean, it's it's thick. Yeah.
Like the sticker or like decal thing is like behind on the glass. It's not like on the front.
Right.
Which is, that's good.
Yeah.
It does not feel, if you hold it in your hands, it does not feel cheap. Like it feels like genuine glass and everything.
So definitely a really cool collector's edition. You're gonna have a hard time putting that on your shelf over there.
Yeah, I'm thinking of putting like the big part up on my thing, like up there. And then taking like the NES cartridge or NES box and hang it back here somewhere.
You should put it like on like a necklace and just have it like hang down.
Oh man, I'd be like this all day.
Ruin your posture, yeah.
That'd be great.
At least everyone would know I'm a true Fire Emblem fan.
Yeah, the weight of the game just constantly on your mind.
Speaking of the weight of the game,
what'd you think about the
good
game?
Lord. It's a product of its time. I think it's good. I think I look at it from the lens of a 1990 game. It is very good for its time. It's still very good in ways, but my God, I really appreciate they added a save state and a rewind feature, because this is a very, very hard game. It is not like modern Fire Emblem games. There's no hub to go back to.
Oh yeah.
Story progresses by taking your units, particularly Marth, most of the time, and heading to points of the village while you're engaging in battle to get information and like lore of the world. And
well, on that point, I do want to bring up though, with this re-release, the localization of this game is really good. I mean, I can't say, I don't read Japanese, so I can't say how accurate it is, but just the way it's written is really well done. And I can guarantee you that if this game had been released in 1990 in the West, that the dialogue would not be like it is. I mean, it's not,
absolutely.
It's not Shakespearean or something, but it's just really buttery smooth with the way it's written. And games that released back in 1990 in English that were translated were usually pretty clumsy and just all sorts of, just clunky sentences and things like that. And this localization is really quite good.
Yeah, and I have a feeling like all the character names would be different because they can't fit the text in. See, well, this game and this localization
full words and sentences, yeah.
yeah, it has the benefit of putting a lot more text in the game and has a stronger localization tools,
Yeah.
obviously. But I have a feeling like Marth would have been named like Matt,
Like Joseph
and
or something. Yeah.
like Kaede would be just like
Kate.
Cat or something. Uh, it would most definitely do that. Um, but the game itself, yeah,
I thought graphically, like the game's colors with this re-release, like they're very vibrant on my television, and I think that that really stood out to me because a lot of times with emulation, it's somebody programmed the emulator to emulate the console, and so they don't
Mm.
quite get the color palette exactly correct. And so the emulator's choosing colors that are slightly off. And so you get a more bland and kind of faded color palette than if you had actually played it on the original console. And man, this thing looks really like very bright blues and greens and just like it's very vibrant and looks really good. I mean, obviously it's an NES game, so it's not Witcher
yeah.
3 or something, but
And
it looks
this
really
was
good.
later. This was later in the Famicom's life cycle too. So it was around the time they found more ways to take advantage of the system or
Yeah, because those
graphical systems.
because because I've never played the game before till now. The battle animations in particular, when you attack another unit and you kind of had that head on one on one, I was surprised with how detailed each the enemy and your character unit is, and then also the animations to attack were very complicated, I thought, for an NES title. I mean, with the Pegasus Knight class, he'll literally like kind of like back up and like kind of hoof on the ground and then kind of leap up in the air, then come down and like stab the guy. And I was just like, dude, this is amazing on an NES game. This looks great.
Yeah, the animations were good, definitely. The character portraits are a little weird
Oh yeah.
looking.
Yeah.
It's like they tried really hard to translate the artwork from the covers,
Yeah.
but
Mm.
I think there's a lot of compromises they were trying to make, and some characters look fine, some not as much.
Yeah.
Uh,
Well, they all have like
another
very square looking faces, like very hard edges and stuff to their face. Yeah.
yeah. And when I say this game is hard, it is like, first off, you don't have casual mode in this game. When your character is dead, they are dead,
Permadeath. Yeah.
unless you reverse the game or go back to a save load state or go back a chapter. Um, that's another big thing. You can miss stuff from a chapter,
Mm.
so there's stuff you can miss that's good to the point that you are tempted to just jump back a chapter just so you can get it. That's I know someone in the review said it that it's a good idea to do bookmarks of a previous chapter. So if you screwed up something or found out about something, you have to buy equipment while in battle. You have to be strategic about who needs what and find out what the kind of enemies you have in the field. I mean,
That like look, I'll be honest, that has been the hardest thing for me to get used to because, well, first off, the game's good. I'm surprised. Like I've been playing it like whenever I have spare time. I like playing it. It's very fun. The strategy loop that I get from like three houses, I still find in this game. It's weird. Like it's still present,
mhm,
but Eric, you're right. Like when you have to, like, if a sword breaks or something, I have to take that character and move that character in a series of turns, like all the way over to like the armory, and then hope they have an item that I want, and then buy the item and equip it. And dude, it's bad. As something breaks, you're just like, crap, this sucks. like
and
I
yeah, especially every team member is very important.
hmm
Like that you get like if one dies
yeah.
and you decide to let them stay dead, it's going to make the game so much harder on you not having them.
Agree. But like the strategy element though, I like it. It really holds up because I've played, for example, like Langrisser on the Sega Genesis or I think I was playing on an emulator. I don't know if it was which version of the console it was, but whether it was the Master System or, whatever. But that game is difficult to play because I don't feel like that game, it's a tactical RPG. It hasn't aged as well. But this game, I was playing it for like, I put it down and then like a couple hours later, I'm like, well, let me pick this back up again. Like I still like playing it. Like it's still
Yeah.
very fun. It's just like a strategic, like I feel like I'm playing chess, which is weird to say, but yeah.
Yeah, gameplay wise, it is still superb. I would argue it's probably one of the best NES games.
Yeah. Yeah. I would agree with
Like,
that.
it would have been the classic if it was here,
Yeah.
for sure. Um, and like you said, it still holds up in many ways. It's still very strategic. You still got to like plan out everything. I mean, the elements that make Fire Emblem really good is still here. What I will say though is if you're someone that's into modern Fire Emblem where they have like the hubs and like the dating sim
Oh yeah. That's not here.
type features and
No tea time.
social elements of it, you are not going to find that here. This is
Bring your
this
own
is,
tea. Yes.
this is the most hardcore Fire Emblem for sure. Like they've made some easiness and adjustments over the years to the series to make it at least like approachable. Like this one is like get ready to
Rumble.
it's like a get ready to suffer.
Yeah, it's
But
more
in
of
a
a
good way.
it's more of a punishing difficulty sometimes, huh? Where
With
you
the,
have to really, if your strategy's got to be on point,
yeah.
right? Or you're going to be in trouble.
With the rewind feature though, I've been using it, I'm not gonna lie.
Mm.
Oh, me
Because
too.
I don't have
I
enough time
yeah.
because dude, these battles
Yeah.
are like an hour. I'm not, I'm not, and it's so with the rewind feature, it kind of takes the edge off that a little bit because you can just go back and do the correct thing that time, and it's still very 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 enjoyable. But the story, they've done a lot with the localization, fleshing it out with, full sentences and everything like that. And it's enjoyable for what it is. Like I'm getting engrossed in kind of the plot, but there's not really like massive character development or anything. It's more of like a premise. It's a series of battles, and after every battle, you get a little bit of a lore. You get a little bit of lore when you visit little cities during battle, but it's not anything more than that. So that's one thing I would point out is it's a classic, but it's maybe not a classic in the same sense of maybe some of the Super Nintendo RPGs, but it's a very fun RPG to play, I think.
It is. You just have to be you have to you definitely need to be open-minded that this is the first Fire Emblem, and a lot of features that people are accustomed to over the years is not here. They didn't add it. And also on the rewind feature and the save state feature, trust me, the game is still ridiculously hard even with those features in. Trust me, you will appreciate it unless you are like someone who just has to absolutely have the pure experience and willing to not use the rewind feature. I salute you, sir. I really do. Because there's so many times where I've told myself, man, I gotta reverse this. I gotta reverse this. It's I am not going to waste an hour of my time
Yeah.
from this.
The truth.
So
Yeah.
yeah, it's a beautiful addition. Don't knock on it.
Yeah. So I mean, but it really has stood the test of time. It's very surprising, because I was playing it and I was thinking about it like there are very few times do I go back and play the NES version of Final Fantasy 1 or Final Fantasy 2 or Dragon Quest. Usually I'll play one of the remakes where they've kind of polished up things. But this was, I'm having a blast with this game. I was very surprised. So I definitely would recommend it for $6. It's a piece of history. It's worth playing. They've done some good work with it. I think I would recommend it to, people that enjoy this style of game for sure.
Now, if you're someone who really wants to play Mart's first journey, I mean, there is, and this may be like
The
too
DS.
intimidating for you. They, like Hat mentioned earlier, there is a DS remake, and it does bring a lot more. Not this still did come out before Awakening, so it's still like the um second tier, maybe I'd say Fire Emblem. No, I
Yeah.
would say third tier type, where it's a lot easier. I mean, there's still permadeath, and there are more cutscenes and character interaction dialogue, and such, and it's a more approachable experience if you really want to play this. But if you do want to play the genuine version, like the original, um this one is good. It's $6. It's not, I mean, it's not too heavy of a gamble.
Yep. March 31st, 2021 is supposedly when it's going to go away. I'm sure it'll go away at that point in time, but I'm pretty sure it'll return later in the year. They didn't just port this entire game for no reason.
Maybe as some sort of collection or something that includes like other ones.
Yeah, for
If this
$6, you'll
one
get like
sells well.
5 classic Fire Emblem games, and I'll be pissed. Anyways,
Yeah.
so Eric, got anything else to say about Fire Emblem before we go into some Discord questions?
I just hope they officially translate more Fire Emblem games. There are, I believe, 3 to 4 of them that we don't have. I know we got a remake of Gaiden through Echoes, but it'd be interesting to get the original of that. They have a two Super Nintendo games that we don't have.
Apparently, the second Fire Emblem game on the Super Nintendo has they do like a quick version of events from the first game that kind of lets you experience the first game as well.
Let me put it this way. The first game we got was the 7th Fire Emblem in the series.
Yeah.
So there are some games that can come out, and I hope this is very successful because I want to see those games come too.
Yeah, that'd be really cool. So we'll have to pray and hope and see. So, all right. Well, we have some Discord questions here, so let's jump into it. From Valvedrix, who says, with December coming up, I have a question. Do you have any games you traditionally replay every year around Christmas? I know a lot of people do, myself included. If you do, which games are they? And Valvedrix said, usually Valvedrix chooses nostalgic games from Valvedrix's youth, such as FF7, Gothic 1. Used to play Metal Gear Solid 1 and 2, but no longer has copies. So those were just some examples of what Valvetrix plays over the holidays. But what games do we usually play over the holidays if we have a routine, or what do we do for a holiday break with video games usually?
It's not one title, but something that I'll usually end up playing because I'm hanging out with
Smash
relatives and now relatives kids, younger members of the family, is at some point or other Smash Brothers or Mario Kart always gets introduced, like somewhere, wherever we end up going, somebody's Christmas party, the kids kind of
Are you
get
just
bored
taking
of
first place in every match?
No, I'll it depends. If I'm playing with people my age, it's on, right? But if I'm playing with some of the younger kids, I'll
You're not like shoving it in their face, like
I'll sandbag a little bit, and maybe even try and take out some of the older youngins, right? So that the the littler kids get an opportunity to take some wins. But for myself, I guess there isn't really a game that I pick to like play routinely around Christmas, but I have very good memories of playing Shadow of the Colossus. I mentioned in a previous question many episodes ago at this point, but that game is one that just kind of captured me because I was really looking forward to it, and I got it on Christmas, and I think I beat it that weekend, or maybe that weekend plus one day, because like Christmas fell on like a Thursday or Friday, and I just played the hell out of that game. And it's not a really long game, but I was younger then, so I obviously didn't have any experience with the game, and I didn't have like a strategy guide or anything, but I just remember that entire Christmas weekend just being dedicated to that game. And even when I wasn't playing it, I was just thinking about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very cool. I mean, for the holidays, it's been a routine in the past for me to replay a Final Fantasy game. Not a particular one. I mean, usually it's either Final Fantasy 9 or Final Fantasy 10, I find, on holidays, just because I have memories of those games during the holidays, getting to play them. And that's kind of why with that. But I guess in the past couple of years, I've kind of drifted towards more of a routine of just playing a longer game, a game that might take me a very long time to get through because of work and other responsibilities. Whereas over the holidays, I'll have a little bit more free time, and I can kind of just sit there and play a game for 6 hours, if I want to. So last year I played through Witcher 3 on Switch. I'd already played it before on PC, but I wanted to play that on Switch, so I did that. And I think one year I did Final Fantasy 14. I didn't get through it, but I played a lot of it over a break. So yeah, that's kind of what I choose. I'm kind of a pragmatic type person in that way. But Eric, what's your holiday routine for games?
I don't really have one either. I do play some Castlevania games around Halloween though.
Oh, nice.
Well, that's not Christmas, but I think that
Yeah,
works.
If it's the
but
time.
I do have fond memories myself. I still love now I remember Final Fantasy X actually came out a few days before Christmas that year.
Mhm.
And I had really fond memories. It was, the PS2, the big fat one,
Yeah.
and I remember again Final Fantasy X, and it was just like right there with it next to it, and I was so excited, and I got it in, and I was just so amazed how beautiful the game looked at the time, and it's still a good looking game today, but and by many regards, um uh but like that was just such a happy moment that like maybe I should play FF10 more around Christmas time or so, or other times like I really loved playing Battle Arena Toshinden when I first got the PS1.
Hmm.
That was really fun. I'm trying to think what other times. Oh man. N64 with Mario 64. Um
Some good
those
games.
are the fondest ones I can remember.
Yeah. You know what I really want to do? You sparked my memory here. I still have yet to play. I want to play Final Fantasy X on PC with the mod that will let me play it with the Japanese voice acting, but the English text on all the UI and subtitles. I
Hmm.
just want to play it like that with different voice actors just to see if I'll like it even more. Because I know a lot of people have complaints with Titus's voice and it's not masculine enough, and the Japanese voice actor's a little bit more masculine. So I that would be a new way to play the game. I'm kind of interested to see how that
I
would.
wonder if your brain will allow you to like it more, because the game is like the game came out in 2002.
Yeah.
I think, yeah, that's almost 18 years old. You've had those voice actors in your head for 18 years, and now you're going to listen to it in Japanese. It's like, um, I'll be interested to see if you could convince yourself that if they're better or not.
Yeah. I can tell you that the laughing scene, the infamous laughing scene, is not any better. in my opinion. I've seen the comparison on YouTube for the Japanese versus the English one, and I think the English one might be the best. As
I
much
think
as people
Waka
like to
does
make
slap
fun of
him
it.
after it, though.
What's that, Eric?
I think Waka does slap him after it, though.
No, that's fine. That's the most out of context scene, but even in context, it's still kind of like, oh god. So
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm just interested to play it, just because I see a lot of people that say like they would like the game, but they can't stand the voice acting, and I'm always like curious to just try it with Japanese and be that way. I can tell people, hey, if you didn't like the English, try the Japanese version with that might be worth playing. So
Yeah.
I might want to play on my Switch again sometime if there's a good sale on it.
there's that option too. For a while, they were having the international version of Final Fantasy X on Switch, which was special because it would have Final Fantasy X and X-2 on the same cart, whereas the Switch version, you only get Final Fantasy X on the cart, and you had to download X-2. So for completionists, the international version on the Switch was the best deal. And I was tempted to buy that because originally people were saying that you could play it in Japanese with the English text. But that is only a rumor, people, if you're out there searching. It's if you play it in Japanese, you'll have Japanese text. There's no, it gives you the Japanese dub, but no English text. So just keep that in mind. Anyways, let's go on to Demosthenes' question, then we'll wrap this podcast up. But Demosthenes asks, do you guys think you'll do a podcast near New Year's talking about your favorite games that came out in 2020? And this is a good question. We usually do some kind of video or episode like that. And for example, in the past, I went back and checked out what I chose for the prior years. And so last year I chose Fire Emblem 3 Houses. 2018, I chose Dragon Quest XI. And 2017, I chose Horizon Zero Dawn, because Horizon Zero Dawn is an RPG. So those are the games that I chose for the past 3 years. And I still think I pretty much agree with those. So actually, I completely agree with those. So, anyways, so.
I'm sure we will do it.
Yeah.
Most likely, yeah.
Yeah.
I can't remember what I picked in past year. My guess is 2019. I probably picked Dragon Quest XI S because I hadn't played the original.
Use that caveat, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, we'll absolutely do it. But cool. So I think that's going to wrap us up for today. Like I said, next week I'll be giving some impressions on Cyberpunk. I'm very, very excited to download this game. I'm going to be playing on my new PC. I don't unfortunately have a PS5. I didn't want to wait in a parking lot, or I didn't want to lose my job because I sat on Amazon refreshing the page for 9 hours. So I'm going to play it on my PC. Very excited. Be giving my impressions next week. And then we are also going to most likely be talking about the Game Awards, whatever happens there. So it should be something interesting to talk about. And that's going to leave us here for this episode. We will catch you all next week. Take it easy, guys.
Take care.
See you next time.